What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of the F1 2019 modded career mode. Here today for round number 3 at the Chinese Grand Prix. And last time out in Bahrain, unfortunately, we didn't score any points. It was a pretty disastrous race from ourselves, but fortunately, you guys seem to absolutely love the video, so I cannot thank you enough for the support that you're giving on this series. So I'm going to up the like target from 100 up to 200 on this video. Now, getting into this Grand Prix, you can see we've got an upgrade on the car. Unfortunately, it's only one when it was meant to be two. So we had a failed upgrade in the aerodynamics department, and it's kept us in 4th place in the performance charts. I believe we probably would have slipped behind Haas had both upgrades have failed, because they also made one upgrade ahead of this Grand Prix. But we're still the 4th quickest car, quite a long way behind Red Bull. But we have made a slight gain on them, as you can see on the performance chart. Now, on to future upgrades, you can see we've got 4 in progress. 2 of them should be with us for the next round in Azerbaijan, and 2 with us for the first main European race of the season in Spain. Just like in the last video, we've made a couple of upgrades to the mods that we're using. And if you guys have any suggestions, any mods that you want me to add, whether it be liveries, helmets, etc., do leave them down in the comment section, because one of them is a suggestion from a viewer. So it's only a small little bit on the side of the car, but that Orlan is actually Robert Kubica's main sponsor. So I've replaced all of the SMP decals on the Williams car, which is of course Sergei Sirotkin's sponsor, with the Orlan. Now we're going to get onto the starting grid in a minute to see how we all line up for this Chinese Grand Prix. And you'll see on that grid that my face has been put into the game. And that is courtesy of Kondacek, who is one of the modders on Race Department, the place where I get all my mods from. So yeah, he kindly offered to put my face in the game. He's a viewer of this series, so that was really good of him. I'll leave a link down to his page on Race Department in the description. He's also got a 2019 season mod, which I'm using part of in my series, so you can go and download that if you want. Now, getting on to the starting grid, before we kick this episode off properly, it's Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel once again on the front row for the 3rd race in a row. And you've got Valtteri Bottas and Charles Leclerc, their respective teammates, sitting just behind. Then it's an all Red Bull 3rd row with Pierre Gasly out-qualifying his teammate Max Verstappen. And the 2 Renaults, myself and Daniel Ricciardo, sat in 7th and 8th. I've just got out-qualified once again by Ricciardo. Grosjean and Perez round out the top 10, with Magnussen and Sainz lining up in 11th and 12th. And of course, all these drivers outside of the top 10 will have free choice of tyres. And you'll see in a moment what the race strategy is looking like, but I think it will be of benefit to start outside the top 10. So we qualified on the ultra soft tyres, and that means that we are going to have to make 2 pit stops this afternoon. A very short stint on the ultra softs, followed by 2 soft tyre stints. And yeah, it's going to be interesting just to see how things pan out. So that's all the formalities out of the way, and now it's time to get into the formation lap before we start this Grand Prix properly. And you can see in the bottom right corner exactly what the driver standings are looking like ahead of this race. Now, I'm currently the top scoring Renault driver on 6 points, because we just haven't been able to convert our good qualifying performances into any sort of good substantial result. But hopefully that can change today. Daniel Ricciardo and myself hopefully will be getting solid points as we line up on the grid now, ready for the 5 red lights ahead of this Chinese Grand Prix, and away we go. It's a reasonable start from ourselves, or the initial getaway was, but it was a little bit of a bog down in the secondary phase of the start. We're going to be crowded as Sergio Perez tried to go down our inside there. Fortunately, we did manage to resist the move from himself, and we stay in position in P8. Just up ahead, we've got Daniel Ricciardo trying to go down the inside of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, and it just looks as if he's going to run out of room there. And yes, sure enough, Verstappen stays ahead for the meantime, but we're going to go to the inside now for an overtake on our teammate, and it's ended up being a double overtake. We get the car slowed down perfectly, no lockups whatsoever, and that was a brilliant double overtake for myself up into P6. We run a little bit wide, Oh, it was short-lived in P6, but it was good while it lasted. Unfortunately, the car just understeering with this heavy fuel load, and we're down into P7, but still, we've made up a position on the opening lap of the race. We're ahead of our teammates, and showing that we may have the pace indeed to finish ahead of him as he tries to go down our inside there on the entry to the snail section before we get onto the massive straight, which we are now onto. And already, we are quite a long way back from Max Verstappen, considering we're ahead of him at the start of the second sector as well. But anyway, we're going to take a look at the replay of the start from the perspective of the guys at the front. Hamilton got a pretty decent getaway with Vettel just having to stick behind him. And then Leclerc getting a very good start ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Now, Bottas tried to fight back as they now go through turn 2 and into turn 3 and 4. But it just doesn't look as if it was quite enough. No, Leclerc getting that position. So fair play to him. He is up into third. Bottas bogged down by the looks of it. As you can see, Pierre Gasly sat in P5. And then in P6 was Max Verstappen until we came charging down the inside into the start of Sector 2 at turn 6. A lovely little move. Very Daniel Ricciardo-esque. I believe he made a similar move there in 2017. But unfortunately, Verstappen got me back through turn 8. So, you know, it swings and roundabouts. We lasted all of one corner in 6th position. And I can't help but feel that it's just going to get further and further away. And sure enough, we skip on to lap 2. And we've had to go defensive pretty early in this Grand Prix. Our teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, prowling behind us. And then Sergio Perez waiting in the wings. The Racing Point car of Perez. He just hasn't got away for us this season. He's often qualified behind myself and Ricciardo, but in the races he just tends to sneak up and do a good job. So I'm going to be careful of him throughout the course of this race, and I think Ricciardo should probably be wary of him as well. Although now Ricciardo is on the front foot because he's trying to make an overtake on ourselves. We go into turn 11 and now through turn 12, this long right-hander, and he just couldn't get the move done. He actually had to back out of that move, and now Perez is going to get a good run on this main straight on the exit of turn 13. He's got that Mercedes power unit in the back of his Racing Point car rather than the Renault engine in this, obviously in the Renault car. And Perez goes down the inside of Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo's going to try and stick it around the outside, but he doesn't quite manage to do it. Or does he? No, he's in fact managed to get side by side through turn 15. And now as we go through the final corner, Ricciardo gets the move done and stays in P8 for the meantime. But that Mercedes engine once again coming to fruition as they come towards the start of the third lap of the Grand Prix. And now Perez gets the move done. I don't think Ricciardo can do anything about it now as they go into the opening snail section on the lap. And sure enough, Sergio Perez is up into P8 in this Grand Prix. Now, it'll be interesting to see whether Ricciardo is going to make a move now into turn 6. Of course, this Renault car looking pretty handy towards the end of the first sector. Ricciardo tending to try and go for a move on ourselves in the last couple of laps. Sorry, on the last lap. But now he's going to have to stick behind Perez in this middle sector as they go through turns 7 and 8. Ricciardo, though, staying very, very close to the gearbox of Perez, so he may be able to get a move done later on in the lap. And he is very, very close now. Perez moving very slowly, and Perez is out of the race on just the third lap. Terrible luck for the Racing Point man, who'd had such a good start to the Grand Prix, but that is his afternoon over, and such a shame to see. But fortunately for us, we've now got a nice little gap behind. It's 3 seconds to Daniel Ricciardo, thanks to the fighting that he did with Sergio Perez, and it's 5 seconds up ahead of us with Verstappen, the next car ahead. So, end of lap 4, our tyres are absolutely gone, which means that we're going to have to do the final 24 laps of this race on 2 sets of soft tyres. So just like in Bahrain, it's going to be 12 laps apiece for each soft tyre set. So coming into the pit lane, hopefully it can be a decent stop. I believe we're one of the first into the pit lane. It looks like one of the Mercedes cars up ahead also came into the pit lane, but no one behind us has decided to pit, meaning we're going to emerge again, just like in Bahrain, in last position after our first pit stop. But just look through that first complex of corners, how tight everyone is together. So as soon as one of them pits, I think it's going to trigger the rest of the pack And hopefully, we'll once again be able to jump in front of them all. But coming towards the end of lap 5, so fast forwarding pretty much one whole lap, we are starting to get a few cars trickle into the pit lane. So Grosjean and Ricciardo are in the pits, and we have just about got ahead of Ricciardo. So we didn't have the greatest outlap by the looks of it. Must have struggled to get any sort of temperature into these tyres, because that gap is definitely less than 3 seconds. So 3 seconds is what it was when we came into the pit lane. But Ricciardo definitely closed up, and he's now on the ultra soft tyres. But we've got a safety car deployed just moments after Ricciardo's emerged from the pit lane. Safety car deployed, and there was a slow moving Alfa Romeo Sauber car. It looked like it was Kimi Raikkonen going through the end of the first sector. So we're going to see what happened to Raikkonen here, and he's travelling down the pit straight. He's got the soft tyres fitted, and he gets a puncture on a tyre set, which should be nowhere near done in this Grand Prix. So a whole gaggle of cars just come straight through, including the 2 Mercedes cars. So they were lucky not to get tangled up in that. But yeah, I can very much see why that has been a danger, and why the stewards have sort of seen the need for the safety car to come out, because that does not look safe, and has the potential to ruin quite a few races. So underneath the safety car conditions now, we can see it is a Haas car leading the pack. It's Kevin Magnussen, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect to be saying that. I don't know whether he's actually pitted. I assume he hasn't pitted in this Grand Prix, because he started outside of the top 10. So in terms of the big guns, we've got Charles Leclerc, who has taken the net lead of this race ahead of Max Verstappen. So the Mercedes cars just completely picked the wrong time to pit, because ahead of them as well is that man, Sebastian Vettel, who's probably sitting in a net P3 currently. Then you've got Valtteri Bottas in a net P4. And the man who started on pole and led the pack away in the first few laps, Lewis Hamilton, is sat in a net P5. So he's had a shocker of a time. We haven't had much better luck, because we're sat in P15. And we've got cars that are probably going to be on a one-stop strategy ahead of us. So we've got our teammate on the quicker ultra soft tyres behind us. We're sat in P15, and now at the restart on lap 9, we are going to try and overtake that Williams of Robert Kubica, but we run wide through the final corner. Those brakes really not up to temperature. It's so difficult when you're going that slow to get all the brakes and tyres up to temperature. And now our teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, going down the inside of us. We're side by side through this opening complex of corners through turns 1 and 2. And now into the left-hander of 3. We're still side by side as we're closing in now on Robert Kubica. So Ricciardo's bailed out of that move, and as we get a bit of a tank slapper out of turns 3 and 4 as we whoosh through turn 5 and break into this turn 6 corner. We go down the inside of Kubica. Unfortunately, we get the move done before we go into the middle sector, where it is incredibly difficult to overtake. And of course, with that Williams car being the slowest on the grid, you don't want to be stuck behind it for too long, especially when you've got another one to dispatch of before too long, because the next car up is George Russell in the other Williams car. So we've closed up to him quite significantly already. We're within a second, but with it being the safety car period, the end of a safety car period, there's going to be no DRS active until it'll probably be lap 12, I believe. So still, anyway, it's quite a while before DRS is active. We're going to have to try and get the move done without it, which will be difficult due to the power unit deficit that we've got. But we're using overtake ERS, rich mix on the fuel, and we're going to go down the inside of George Russell into the hairpin. Don't mind if I do. I will take that position, block him off nicely on the exit through turn 15 and up into P13 at the end of lap 10. Now, we've still got quite a few more cars to dispatch of, but we have still got the Mercedes cars in sight ahead of us. You can just about see them in the distance on that mini-map in the bottom left corner. But I don't think we're going to be in a race with those two. The man that we should be setting our sights on is Alexander Albon, and we've gone down the inside of him, and then a slow-moving Giovinazzi almost stops at that hairpin. I'm not quite sure what he was playing at there, but regardless, we get ahead of Albon. Unfortunately, make a bit of contact with Giovinazzi, but no damage was done to any of the cars, fortunately. And now we're going to try and get the move done cleanly into turn 1 at the start of lap 12. So we'll have DRS come the end of this lap, but we're going to have to get this one done without any artificial assistance. So go down the inside of Giovinazzi now, and he's completely blocked us off there through turn 2. Gave us zero room, and I don't know really where he expected us to go there. But nonetheless, we're going to try and close up to him. And on the run down to turn 6, where we overtook our teammate and Max Verstappen on turn 1, we're just not quite close enough. So the Ferrari power just about pulling Giovinazzi to stay in P11 for the meantime. So yeah, I assume he's going to go onto the medium tyres and go to the end of the race on those. But yeah, we're going to have to overtake him on track by the looks of things, because we've also got one more pit stop to make in this Grand Prix. And it's not looking great at the moment. We're in P12, but of course we've still got 16 laps worth of what's going to have to be overtaking in this Grand Prix. We're effectively a pit stop behind most of the pack at this stage. And it's looking like we're going to get the move done on Giovinazzi. His soft tyres are crying to be replaced at the moment because he got such poor traction on the entry of the main straight, but we just don't have the engine power to get past him until right at the end of the straight. Fortunately, though, we do manage to get it done eventually. Going very, very wide there, though, and I think we probably outbraked ourselves a bit. Fortunately, though, we do manage to get the move done. Giovinazzi couldn't get the power down as he does finally peel off into the pit lane, but we've got yellow flags behind us by the looks of it, and we've got a safety car once again, the second one of the race, and it's emerged just ahead of us. And I don't know whether this is going to be good or bad for us. Now, at the moment, I'm in a bit of a dilemma. Do I pit or not? But before we get to whether I do pit, we're going to take a look at exactly what triggered the safety car. So it was actually just behind us, between Roman Grosjean and George Russell. So Grosjean went wide, and I mean, it looks as if he just comes straight back onto the track. So I don't see what the problem is there, as Russell sort of banged into him. And there were a few body parts, or not literal body parts, but car body parts flying everywhere. But is that really enough to warrant a safety car? I mean, I'm not completely convinced. And we're also going to take a look at exactly what happened on our attempted overtake on Antonio Giovinazzi. So he just gave us no room. He completely squeezed us despite us being side by side. Let me know, guys, what you think of that down in the comments. Was Giovinazzi right to do that, or was I in the right to try and go for that move? Be good to hear what you say. But anyway, back to the racing action. And we did decide to pit at the end of lap 13. We've bit the bullet. We've thought, you know what, we're going to have to pit at some point in this race. We might as well take effectively a free pit stop, because we'll be able to close in to the pack. And it's a little bit of a reset. So everybody has now come in for the medium tyres. And I believe for pretty much all of the pack, that should be the final pit stop of the day. Unless there's anyone that stayed out there and decided not to use this safety car period to pit, I'd imagine everyone's going all the way to the end. Now, someone that hasn't come off well from that is Lewis Hamilton, because he is behind us by the looks of things on the track. The Mercedes must have double stacked. Yes, because Bottas was ahead of him, of course. But yeah, it's not looking good for him. And it's not looking good either for Pierre Gasly, because he is leading this race, but he's still on the soft tyres. So Red Bull decided not to bring him in, so that he's going to have to pit at some point. But that leaves the net race lead to Charles Leclerc. So he's managed to maintain that net lead. It's not a full lead as of yet. But you'd imagine come the end of the race, he will be the man leading. And then you've got what looked like Max Verstappen still in a net P2. Then Bottas, then you've got Sebastian Vettel, but they've all got overtaking to do, because all these cars are in a rightful position. They're completely valid to sort of scrap with the likes of Vettel, Leclerc, etc. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this race pans out. Basically what I'm saying is I have no idea where everyone is going to finish, so you should definitely stay tuned to see exactly what happens. All I know is that we're in P16, and if we stay in the position we do, we're not going to be scoring any points this afternoon. And we're going to have to make another overtake on Alexander Albon and also Antonio Giovinazzi, because they pitted just before the safety car came out, and now the safety car is in, and we've got to do it all over again. Our teammate once again behind us at the restart. Hopefully he doesn't give us too much grief into turn 1 because we want to be the one closing in up ahead on Alexander Albon. But that Honda-powered Toro Rosso just about had enough going into turn 1, and we thought about the move down the inside. And then we realised exactly what Giovinazzi did to us just a few laps ago. So probably wise to sort of opt out of that move. But now on lap 16, later on in the lap, we are cruising up to the back of this pack. So it's still Albon who's the next car to dispatch of. But there is a monstrous train of cars. I'm not quite sure who's at the front of it, but just look at this pack. There's definitely points to be had here this afternoon as Pierre Gasly now comes into the pit lane, which should give us a couple of positions. And we've made our move down the inside of Alexander Albon. So it looks as if we've got that move done into turn 1. There's still a gap that's emerged down the inside. We go for the whole lot. I don't know how many overtakes we've made there, and now we're still side by side with Sainz, but we're going to go round the outside of him. And that must have been a good 5 overtakes that we've made there. 1, 2, 3, it was indeed. It was 5 car overtake into turn 1. That was something else. That really was something else. They were all travelling slowly, and I thought, you know what? I'll just go down the inside. And then I took the outside line, which just happened to be grippy enough for us. And all of a sudden, we've gone from 16th into P7 in the space of just over 1 lap. It's remarkable how things can unfold eventually. But the next car up is Lance Stroll. So this will definitely be for position. It's a similar pace car as well. So he is 3.2 seconds ahead. We've got about 11 laps left in this Grand Prix. And now we're going to take a look at what the running order is looking like. So we've got Lance Stroll, of course, just ahead of us. Then we have got Valtteri Bottas, who is just behind Sebastian Vettel. So they are fighting with one of the Haas cars. I believe that will be Kevin Magnussen, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, indeed it is. So they're going to be scrapping with him. I'd imagine they'll probably overtake him before too long. And then you've got Max Verstappen, who's sort of out on his own at the moment, running a pretty decent race in an effective P2, or in what is actually P2 now. And the leader of this Grand Prix is Charles Leclerc. He's driven a very mature race so far this afternoon. So he's looking as if he's on course for victory. Meanwhile, his teammate is trying to dispatch of Kevin Magnussen for a podium position. And he does move up into P3. And I'm sure that Valtteri Bottas won't take too long to claim P4. So this is going to be an exciting end to the race as we go now on to the start of lap 21. Where we have closed sufficiently to Lance Stroll to probably get within his DRS come the end of this lap. The gap is a second, and it's 6.8 seconds behind us. So we can very much concentrate on getting past Lance Stroll. And then ahead of him is Kevin Magnussen, who has now been passed by Valtteri Bottas. So at maximum, I think we can achieve P5 in this Grand Prix. We're also going to have to look behind us because we've got Lewis Hamilton and Pierre Gasly who will be prowling behind. But currently, we are very much looking forward on lap 21 because we're within DRS range of Lance Stroll. So we're going to open the flap now on the main straight, close up to him. We're all right for ERS, but for some reason we've not decided to deploy too much of it. Maybe because we've got a lot of laps left, and already we're putting Stroll under pressure. We've still got 7 laps left in this Grand Prix, but he's already locking up on the run to the hairpin. He knows that he's under pressure and that we're going to overtake him surely before too long. We are now in overtake ERS mode as we run up to turn 1 and we go down the inside. We're going to go side by side with Lance Stroll and we get ahead of him into P6 at the start of lap 22, and a pretty clean move, it has to be said. And it doesn't look as if Stroll is going to get the opportunity to try and get back at us on the run down to the turn 6 hairpin. Which there's been quite a bit of overtaking action there today, but fortunately not on this lap. So we've got a 3.5 second gap to Kevin Magnussen ahead of us, and we've got 6 laps to close that down. It's going to be touch and go, and unfortunately we couldn't make any inroads. Another thing which is unfortunate was one man that was making inroads was behind us, and his name was Lewis Hamilton. So by lap 25, he'd really closed up to Lance Stroll, and surely with the pace of that Mercedes car, we'll be able to get past him. Yes, indeed, he does. He'll have the inside line into the hairpin and up into P6. So we've got just over 3 laps left in this Grand Prix, and we're going to have to fend off the man that's come first and second in the opening 2 Grand Prix of the season, and the man that is leading the World Championship. So he's 1.5 seconds behind with 3 laps to go. This is going to be an intense end to the Chinese Grand Prix. Our tyres should hopefully, fingers crossed, hold on. But now we are on the end of lap 26, and sure enough, Lewis Hamilton has DRS on us, but he's not going to be able to make the move. So we have managed to save quite a bit of ERS, because I sort of knew that at one point we'd probably have a faster car close up to us. So I'd sort of sacrificed maybe closing in on Magnussen for just trying to preserve this P6 and the tyres as well, because yeah, they weren't in a great state at this stage. But now we've got just over 1 lap left of this Grand Prix. We're on lap 27, and Lewis Hamilton is closing onto us as we come now towards the end of Sector 2 on the run up to turn 11. He's going to go down our inside, and we're not going to fight him. We're not going to fight him because we've still got a DRS activation zone here. So we are going to take the DRS as we run onto the straight, the main straight on the penultimate lap of this Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton currently ahead of us, but we are closing in with that ERS deployment. Are we going to be able to get ahead of him? We're on the DRS, and it looks as if we are back ahead of the Mercedes man. Yes, we are. Back up into P6, and what an enthralling battle this has been. An unlikely battle for P6 between myself and Lewis Hamilton. Didn't expect to be battling him throughout the course of this season, full stop. But here we are with just 1 lap left. We're going to stay on board right until the end of the Grand Prix. Just to sort of see this battle to its conclusion. Will Hamilton get past us, or will we hold out? So Magnussen is probably breathing a sigh of relief, because I know we're not that close to him, but he's pretty much got P5 wrapped up now. He can probably even make a mistake on this final lap, because we're going to be so preoccupied in fending off Lewis Hamilton. And strangely enough, he doesn't get a great run on us on the run up to turn 6. So 0.4 of a second is the gap. And now we're going to see it from the perspective of Lewis Hamilton. So throughout the course of this race, through this sweeping left and sweeping right of 7 and 8, we've taken quite wide lines, which could leave a gap for Hamilton. But no, we just about cover him off, as now we go into this double left-hander at 9 and 10. This is the position where Hamilton got such a good run on us last time out. We've actually gone to no ERS deployment, and Hamilton thought about going for a move there into turn 11 as we were saving our ERS for this main straight. But now Hamilton is going to get the DRS onto this final back straight for the final time. Are we going to be able to fend off the 5-time world champion and championship leader? He goes onto the DRS. He's closing in. Surely he's going to go for a move into the hairpin. And no, he doesn't. He sticks behind. So surely that's the final opportunity. Just so long as we keep it composed into the final corner, we should have this P6 wrapped up. And we brake, go down 2 gears into 4th, and now come out of the final corner to take P6 ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And what a finale to that race. A brilliant final few laps, and to be honest, a great race full stop. So we're just going to take a look at what happened up at the front before we get to the final race results. And rather unsurprisingly, after an imperious race after that first safety car, Charles Leclerc takes victory by an absolute mile. His first victory of the season, Ferrari's first victory of the season. He looks pretty happy. And considering we've had 2 safety cars, that is quite a winning margin ahead of Max Verstappen in P2. But I'm sure the Honda-powered car will be pretty happy with that, as they closely followed home by Sebastian Vettel. And there you can see the man on top of the podium, Charles Leclerc, for the first time. And he's got to be pretty happy with that. Ferrari have got to be pretty happy with that. 40 points in the bag. And now we're going to take a look at the full race results. So obviously leading the pack home was Charles Leclerc ahead of Verstappen, with Vettel in P3 as we already saw. Bottas in P4 and Magnussen in P5 So Stroll, Ricciardo and Norris actually made up the final few points. So fair play to Lando Norris, bringing home a point just ahead of Kvyat and Albon. And our teammate as well, bringing home a couple more points for Renault. Going on to the bottom half of the order, Sergio Perez, funnily enough, was the only DNF from this race. And Pierre Gasly, what a wretched race. What were Red Bull thinking with the strategy? I don't know. But anyway, he's down in P17. And all that means that we move up a couple of positions into P8 in the drivers' standings. Ricciardo stays in 13th, but does, of course, gain a couple more points. And it's Bottas now with the championship lead ahead of Hamilton. I'd like to think that we've had a bit of a contribution towards that, and it'd be nice if it just had a little bit of impact come at the end of the season. And there you can see Renault moving up ahead of Racing Point into 5th in the championship, in the constructors' standings. But guys, that is it for this Chinese Grand Prix. It's been a pretty action-packed one, so hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll catch you guys next time out for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Do join me then. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.